Well, modern ships carry mighty funny gear, and away, get away, you shanty man. Ain't seen a halliard for many's a year, and they got no use for a shanty man.
Nowadays, Porthleven is a popular tourist resort, but these photos from the Museum of Cornish Life helped us to realise how life in the village has changed. The harbour was built in the early 19th century to provide shelter along this dangerous stretch of coast. For the next century or more, the fishing industry provided the main employment. Until the 1920s, Kitto's was a large boat building and net making business, employing hundreds of people. When the weather did not permit the boats to go out, fishermen might spend their time mending nets or making crab pots. The old-style crab pots are made from willow rods, known as withies. Pots in regular use last around 2 years before they had to be replaced. A few makers and fishermen still keep the traditions alive today. Pilchards, now called Cornish sardines, were an important catch, and once landed they were salted and packed in barrels called hogsheads. The most recognisable building in the village is the Bickford Smith Institute, called the Clock Tower. It was built in 1834 and is now well known throughout the country and even internationally because of the memorable images of waves striking it during the storms. It features in the story we will tell you.
Old Tom liked to sit in his favourite chair in the ship, sipping his pint and telling stories about his life as a fisherman. I'll tell you about the time I was caught out in a storm. I set out early one morning to check my crab pots. There were a few men about their work in the harbour. Strike was mending his holy nets. Mally was cutting up fish for bait. Jago Williams was busy making a crab pot, patiently pulling willow strand by strand. Elizabeth Pascoe was making her way to the pilchard cellar.
I climbed aboard my boat, the Penrose, and set out through the bogs to Mounts Bay. I left behind the houses huddled on the cliffs and the clock tower standing tall. The sea was calm that morning, and the dancing waves glittered in the sunlight. A dolphin kept me company for a while, and a shoal of mackerel glinted silver just beneath the surface of the clear water. I knew the weather would change before the day's end. I had just enough time to collect my catch before it turned nasty. I hauled in the first pot. It had 2 fine crabs. The next pot held a lobster as well as a crab, and so it went on. I have never had such a handsome catch. I was so busy I hadn't noticed the dark clouds rolling in, covering the sun and the strengthening wind.
The gulls were shrieking and heading for shelter inland, signalling a storm. I turned for home. The wind spat cold, salty rain. The waves grew bigger, churning and foamy. The Penrose was tossed like a toy, struggling to ride the mighty swell. Waves clawed their way up the clock tower, attacked it like a savage beast, engulfed it in a wave of menace. I had never been in such a violent storm. The Penrose was lashed and battered. Suddenly, a great log loomed on the crest of a wave and smashed into her side.
I thought the end was near. The sea would pull us under. The storm raged on.
I had almost given up hope when I saw a lifeboat making its way through the waves towards me. It was coming to the rescue. I held on tight until it was close enough for the crew to throw me a line. The Penrose and I were towed to safety.
As we edged our way into the harbour, I had never felt so reassured by the sight of the clock tower standing firm and everlasting, resisting those crashing waves. My legs were shaking as I walked up the slip.
As I sat in the comfort of my favourite chair, I felt thankful that I did not drown that day.
Well, modern ships carry mighty funny gear, and away, get away, you shall. shanty man. Ain't seen a halliard for many's a year, and they got no use for a shanty man. Slick new fittings are all your style, and away get away you shanty man. All very clever, but they just ain't right, and they got no use for a shanty man. Shanty man, oh shanty man, who's got a berth for a shanty man? Sing you a song of a world gone wrong, and they got no use for a shanty man. Levers to pull and buttons to press, and away get away you shanty man.